First Contact's Consequences. Dr. Sarah Chen stood at the observation deck of Research Station Horizon, her eyes fixed on the strange energy signatures appearing at the edge of their sensor range. As the station's lead xenophysicist, she had spent years studying anomalous phenomena in deep space, but these readings defied every known classification in human scientific records. "Director Matthews needs you in command, Dr. Chen." The voice of her AI assistant, ARIA, broke through her concentration. "The signatures are moving closer, and they're not responding to hails." Sarah hurried through the station's corridors, her mind racing through possibilities. The Horizon was humanity's most advanced deep space research facility, positioned at the edge of known space. They weren't supposed to have company out here. The command center buzzed with controlled tension when she arrived. Director Matthews, a veteran of the Earth Defense Force before joining the scientific community, stood before the main display with his arms crossed. "Dr. Chen, please tell me these readings make sense to you," he said, gesturing to the approaching anomalies. Sarah studied the data scrolling across the screens. "They're using some form of propulsion we've never encountered before. The energy signature suggests incredibly advanced technology. But," she paused, frowning, "there's something wrong with their approach vector." "Wrong how?" "It's too perfect." Sarah pulled up a tactical analysis. "No natural movement has this level of mathematical precision. These are ships, Director, and they're in attack formation." As if triggered by her words, the unknown vessels dropped their stealth fields. 12 sleek, crystalline ships appeared, their surfaces refracting light in ways that seemed to defy physics. "Battle stations," Matthews ordered, his voice calm but firm. "Initiate Protocol Omega." "Dr. Chen, you're with me." Protocol Omega was supposed to be theoretical, a last-resort defensive measure developed by combining human ingenuity with the station's cutting-edge research. They had never tested it in actual combat because the risks were too high. The alien ships opened fire, their weapons releasing streams of coherent energy that twisted space itself. The station's conventional shields buckled under the first volley. "They're not trying to disable us," Sarah realized, watching the attack pattern. "They're trying to eliminate us completely." Matthews nodded grimly. "Then they shouldn't have given us time to think." He turned to the tactical officer. "Activate the quantum interference grid. Dr. Chen, begin the sequence." Sarah's fingers flew across the controls, implementing the theoretical defense system she had helped design. The Horizon's quantum computers began processing at unprecedented speeds, analyzing the attacker's weapon signatures and generating counter-frequencies in real time. The alien vessels fired again, but this time, something extraordinary happened. Their energy weapons hit the station's new defensive field and twisted. The beams curved back on impossible angles, turning the very laws of physics against their originators. "It's working," Sarah exclaimed. "The quantum field is using their own weapon signatures to create localized space-time distortions. They're literally fighting against their own attack patterns." The alien fleet's perfect formation broke apart as ships tried to evade their own redirected fire. Two vessels collided in their confusion, their crystalline hulls shattering in the vacuum of space. "Send the message," Matthews ordered. "All frequencies, all languages we know." Sarah activated the communication array. "Unknown vessels, this is Research Station Horizon. Your unprovoked attack has been countered. We are capable of continuing this defense indefinitely. We suggest you withdraw and prepare for diplomatic contact." For several tense moments, nothing happened. Then, one by one, the remaining alien ships retreated, disappearing back into whatever stealth technology had hidden them before. Hours later, Sarah sat in her office, reviewing the battle data. The station's quantum defense system had worked better than anyone could have predicted, but something about the attack bothered her. ARIA analyzed the attacker's tactical approach. "Compare it to all known combat doctrines in our database." The AI's response was immediate. Their formation and attack patterns show signs of extreme age, Doctor. They were using strategies that would have been innovative thousands of years ago, but they never adapted when their initial approach failed. A civilization that advanced, but tactically stagnant. Sarah mused. They've relied on technological superiority for so long that they've forgotten how to innovate. A priority message flashed across her screen. The first official contact from the attackers. They identified themselves as the Voidborn Confederation, a coalition of ancient spacefaring species. Their message was diplomatic in tone, but carried an unmistakable undercurrent of shock and indignation. Sarah couldn't help but smile as she read their carefully worded demands for information about human defensive capabilities. The Confederation had expected to find a primitive research outpost. Instead, they had encountered humanity's greatest strength, the ability to turn theoretical science into practical solutions under pressure. "Send them my compliments," she told ARI, and informed them that we look forward to discussing the terms of humanity's entry into galactic society. As equals, not subjects. The first shots had been fired, but the real battle, the struggle for humanity's place among the stars, was just beginning. The price of pride. Grand Arbiter Vexthal stood before the Confederation High Council, his crystalline form pulsing with barely contained frustration. The holographic display behind him showed the human research station that had somehow defeated a Confederation scout fleet. "These humans must be contained," he declared, his translated voice echoing through the vast chamber. "Their development of quantum manipulation technology poses an unacceptable risk to the established order." The council chamber, carved from a single massive asteroid thousands of years ago, housed representatives from the 30 most advanced species in known space. Each member had earned their place through millennia of careful technological progress and adherence to Confederation protocols. Ambassador Lyra of the Starborn Collective raised her luminescent appendage. "Perhaps we should consider diplomatic integration. The humans have demonstrated remarkable recklessness," Vexthal interrupted. "They achieved in decades what took us centuries of careful development. Their quantum defense system could have torn a hole in space-time. They must be taught to progress at an appropriate pace." In the observation gallery, Commander Sarah Chen watched the proceedings with growing concern. 3 months had passed since the attack on Station Horizon, and humanity's diplomatic mission to the Confederation had been an exercise in frustration. Her neural implant buzzed with an encrypted message from Earth Command. "Keep watching. Let them underestimate us." The Council's debate continued, with various members arguing over how best to manage humanity's development. None of them seemed to notice or care that their discussions about restricting human technology were happening in front of human representatives. "We will implement the guidance protocols," Vexthal finally announced. "All human vessels will be required to carry Confederation oversight officers. Their research facilities will be subject to regular inspections. Their quantum technology development will be suspended until they demonstrate sufficient cultural maturity." Sarah maintained her diplomatic composure, but her mind was already racing through the implications. The Confederation didn't understand that humanity's strength wasn't in their technology. It was in their ability to adapt and innovate with whatever tools they had available. Back on Earth, the response to the Confederation's demands was immediate and subtle. No official protests were filed. No diplomatic outrage was expressed. Instead, humanity began to prepare in ways their would-be overseers couldn't comprehend. At a secure facility beneath the Mariana Trench, Dr. James Rodriguez led a team developing what they called low-tech solutions to high-tech problems. They studied the Confederation's advanced ships and found that for all their complexity, they relied on predictable patterns. "Their technology is like a perfect mathematical equation," James explained to the Joint Chiefs. "Impressive, but inflexible. They haven't had to adapt in so long that they've forgotten how." In orbit around Jupiter, Admiral Helena Drake oversaw the modification of Earth's defense fleet. "We don't need to match their technology," she told her officers. "We just need to make it work differently than they expect." The Confederation oversight officers watched these preparations with dismissive amusement. They saw humans practicing with primitive kinetic weapons alongside their energy weapons. They observed human ships performing seemingly random maneuvers. They reported back that the humans were struggling to adapt to civilized space combat doctrine. None of them realized that humanity was developing entirely new ways of fighting that didn't rely on technological superiority. 6 months into the guidance protocols, the Confederation received a surprise. Their oversight officers began reporting strange malfunctions in their advanced monitoring equipment. The humans helpful offered to assist with repairs, all while implementing their own monitoring systems that the Confederation didn't even recognize as technology. They're using mechanical computers, one oversight officer reported with disdain. Primitive clockwork devices, hardly worth noting. Those same primitive devices were immune to the Confederation's most sophisticated cyber warfare techniques. They couldn't be hacked because they weren't what the Confederation considered computers at all. Sarah Chen, now Earth's official ambassador to the Confederation, sat in her office reviewing reports of humanity's preparations. The Confederation's pride had led them to make 3 critical mistakes. They assumed technological superiority equated to tactical superiority. They believed their way was the only way to advance, and most importantly, they had given humanity time to prepare. Your species is adapting well to oversight, Grand Arbiter Vexthul told her during a mandatory progress review. Soon you will understand the benefits of proper technological progression. Sarah smiled diplomatically. We're learning a great deal about the Confederation's methods, she replied, letting him interpret that however he wished. What she didn't tell him was that humanity had already developed countermeasures to every piece of Confederation technology they'd encountered. Not by creating superior technology, but by finding innovative ways to use simpler technology that the Confederation wouldn't expect or understand. The price of the Confederation's pride would soon become clear, but by then it would be too late. Humanity wasn't preparing for war. They were preparing to show the galaxy that true advancement comes not from having the most advanced technology, but from having the creativity to use any technology in ways no one else had imagined. Breaking point. The attack on New Haven Colony happened during what humans call the Harvest Festival. The raiders, a species known as the Krevtak, had been watching the human settlement for weeks. They dismissed the antiquated-looking defense satellites as primitive technology, unworthy of concern. That was their first mistake. Admiral Helena Drake received the distress signal while inspecting Earth's Jupiter defense platform. The message came not through conventional quantum channels, but through an old-style radio broadcast, exactly as planned. New Haven Colony under attack. Krevtak raiders. Confederation Oversight Post refuses to intervene, initiating Protocol Avalanche. Helena smiled grimly. The Confederation had forbidden humans from deploying their advanced defensive systems. They hadn't forbidden what they considered obsolete technology. They were about to learn why humanity never truly abandoned any tool that might prove useful. The primitive defense satellites around New Haven activated. Instead of energy weapons or shield generators, they released clouds of what appeared to be metallic dust. The Krevtak ships flew through these clouds without concern. Their energy shields were designed to stop weapons, not dust. Then the colonists activated their ground-based electromagnetic pulse generators. The metallic dust, now coating the raiders' ships, conducted the electromagnetic pulse perfectly. Systems that should have been protected by advanced shielding went dark. Ships that had relied entirely on energy shields found themselves without power, their crews suddenly realizing why humans still trained for zero-gravity combat. Launch rescue fleet, Helena ordered. Inform the Confederation Oversight Post that we're conducting an emergency evacuation exercise. By their own protocols, they can't interfere with civilian safety drills. The human response ships looked vastly different from their previous vessels. Gone were the sleek lines and obvious weapon ports. These ships appeared cobbled together, more like industrial vessels than warships. The Confederation observers reported this change as evidence that humanity was finally accepting its proper place in the galactic order. They didn't realize that every apparent weakness was carefully designed. The rescue fleet arrived at New Haven within hours. The Krev-Tak raiders, their ships still powerless, watched in confusion as the human vessels approached. They expected demands for surrender. Instead, mechanical arms extended from the human ships, physically grappling the raiders' vessels. "This is Captain Sarah Martins of the Earth Emergency Response Fleet. The transmission went out on all frequencies. Your ships have experienced an unfortunate malfunction. Under Confederation Safety Protocol 247B, we are required to provide emergency assistance." The Confederation Oversight Post could only watch. The humans were following every regulation perfectly, using the Confederation's own rules against them. They couldn't object to a species helping disabled ships, even if those ships had just attacked them. What followed was a masterclass in malicious compliance. Human engineers boarded the raiders' ships to assist with repairs. They carefully documented every illegal weapon, every banned technology, all while wearing body cameras that transmitted directly to the Confederation Council. Grand Arbiter, Ambassador Chen addressed the Council the next day, her voice carrying the weight of carefully controlled anger. "We have submitted evidence that the Krev-Tak raiders were operating with illegal weaponry, in violation of 17 different Confederation protocols. We request immediate action." Vexthal's crystalline form flickered with discomfort. "The Council will need time to review this evidence. Proper procedures must be followed." "Of course," Sarah agreed smoothly. "In the meantime, we've begun implementing our own safety protocols to protect our colonies, all within Confederation guidelines, naturally." The Council chamber erupted in concerned murmurs as she displayed humanity's new safety measures. Clouds of self-replicating nanites that could disable any energy-based technology. Gravity manipulation fields disguised as industrial mining equipment. Weapon systems that use the principles of supposedly primitive projectile weapons scaled up to spacecraft size. None of it violated Confederation restrictions because none of it used restricted technology. Humanity had found ways to achieve advanced results using permitted methods, combining simple tools in ways the Confederation had never imagined. "You can't do this," one council member protested. "These implementations of basic technology, they're not what the regulations intended." "But they are what the regulations allow," Sarah countered. "Unless you're suggesting that the Confederation's carefully crafted rules are somehow inadequate." The silence that followed was deafening. The Confederation faced a choice: admit their regulations were flawed, or watch as humanity systematically redefined what was possible with primitive technology. In her private quarters later, Sarah received a message from Admiral Drake. "New Haven colony secured. All raiders in custody. No casualties on our side." "How did the Council take it?" "They're beginning to understand," Sarah replied. "But I don't think they yet realize that this was just a demonstration. They're about to learn that humanity doesn't need advanced technology to change the galaxy. We just need the imagination to use what we have in ways they never expected." The breaking point had been reached. Now it was time to show the galaxy why underestimating humanity was the greatest mistake the Confederation had ever made. Calculated response. The Confederation expected retaliation after the New Haven incident. They anticipated human warships, energy weapons, and desperate attempts to prove technological superiority. What they got instead was far more terrifying: bureaucracy. Another petition for safety inspection. Grand Arbiter Vexthal's crystalline form pulsed with irritation as he reviewed the latest stack of human requests. "This is the 100th one this cycle." Each petition was meticulously crafted, citing specific Confederation regulations. Each required a full review. Each demanded that Confederation officials personally inspect human colonies and shipping lanes. The humans had learned the Confederation's rules better than its own members. Admiral Helena Drake watched the surveillance feeds from her command center on Europa as another inspection team arrived at a human outpost. "Are the preparations complete?" she asked. "Yes, Admiral. Her AI assistant confirmed. Operation Papercut is proceeding exactly as planned. The name was a joke among human forces, death by 1,000 small cuts, while the Confederation struggled under the weight of endless inspections and safety reviews. Humanity's real work happened in plain sight. Each inspection team was shown exactly what humanity wanted them to see. They documented outdated defense systems, basic terraforming equipment, and primitive manufacturing facilities. What they failed to notice was how these simple technologies were being connected in unprecedented ways. Sarah Chen, now Director of Human Confederation Relations, stood before the Council for what seemed like the 1,000th time. "We're concerned about the lack of proper safety protocols in Sector 7, she announced. "Our survey teams have identified 37 potential violations of Confederation guidelines." The Council chamber, once a place of ordered dignity, had become a scene of barely contained chaos. Representatives argued over how to handle a flood of human safety concerns while maintaining their appearance of superiority. What none of them realized was that humanity's endless safety inspections served multiple purposes. Every Confederation ship that visited a human colony was scanned, analyzed, and understood. Every official who conducted an inspection unwittingly revealed more about their species' technological limitations. In her secure office, Dr. James Rodriguez reviewed the latest data. "It's fascinating," he told his team. "Their technology hasn't evolved in centuries. They've perfected what they know, but they've stopped looking for new approaches entirely. The humans found weaknesses not in the technology itself, but in how it was used. Confederation ships always followed the same patrol routes, their crews trained to follow procedures that hadn't changed in generations. Their defense systems operated on predictable patterns, their responses to threats predetermined by ancient protocols. Humanity's response wasn't to fight this system, it was to become an integral part of it. They filed reports on every Confederation vessel that deviated from safety protocols. They documented every instance of regulations being ignored. They became the galaxy's most diligent hall monitors. And in doing so, they gained access to everything. The humans are becoming quite adept at administrative procedures," one council member commented during a private session. "Perhaps we should consider offering them a minor advisory position." None of them understood that humanity had already mapped every supply line, identified every command center, and calculated precisely how to disable the Confederation's entire infrastructure without firing a single shot. The proof came during what became known as the Silicon Dawn, a coordinated series of safety system tests activated across human space. Each test, perfectly legal under Confederation law, created tiny disruptions in the carefully ordered patterns of galactic commerce. Confederation ships found their standard routes blocked by human safety cordons, forcing them to deviate from their programmed paths. Communication networks experienced minor delays as human inspection teams conducted routine maintenance. Supply chains faced microscopic interruptions as safety reviews required slight alterations to delivery schedules. None of these changes were significant enough to protest. All were perfectly legal. But together, they demonstrated how easily humanity could bring the entire Confederation to a standstill without violating a single regulation. Director Chen, Vexful's voice carried a new note of uncertainty during their next meeting. "These safety measures, they're causing considerable disruption to established patterns." Sarah smiled diplomatically. "We're simply ensuring compliance with Confederation standards, unless you're suggesting we should be less thorough in following your regulations." The implied threat was clear. Humanity had found a way to fight back that the Confederation had never anticipated. They couldn't defend against it because it used their own systems against them. In the depths of space, human ships continued their patrols, their crews well-trained in both combat and bureaucratic warfare. They were ready for either type of conflict, but they had discovered that properly filed paperwork could be more devastating than any weapon. The Confederation's greatest mistake hadn't been underestimating human technology. It had been underestimating human adaptability. They never considered that a species might master bureaucracy as thoroughly as battle tactics. A new understanding. The Confederation Council chamber had changed. Where once crystalline beings and energy forms had dominated the proceedings, now representatives from younger species filled many of the seats. At the center of it all stood Director Sarah Chen, addressing the newly formed Galactic Reform Committee. The old ways served their purpose, she said, her voice carrying through the vast space. But the galaxy is evolving. The Confederation must evolve with it. 3 years had passed since humanity's campaign of bureaucratic warfare had forced the Confederation to confront its own stagnation. The change hadn't come through violence or technological supremacy, but through something far more powerful, the demonstration of a better way. Admiral Helena Drake, now serving as Earth's military liaison to the Confederation, stood at her side. Our strength was never in our weapons or our technology, she explained to the assembled representatives. It was in our ability to look at old problems from new angles. The holographic displays showed the transformation happening across Confederation space. Human innovations were being adopted not because they were more advanced, but because they were more adaptable. The rigid patterns of the past were giving way to fluid, dynamic approaches that combined technologies in ways no one had considered before. In orbit around New Haven Colony, now a thriving hub of interspecies cooperation, Confederation ships trained alongside human vessels. They learned not just new tactics, but new ways of thinking about space combat entirely. Watch how they combine technologies, a Krevtak instructor told his students, his voice carrying a note of wonder. The same species that had once raided human colonies now sent their best warriors to learn from them. They don't just use tools, they'd reimagine what those tools can do. Dr. James Rodriguez, leading a joint Human Confederation research team, had discovered something remarkable about the ancient species' technology. Their advancement didn't stop because they couldn't progress further, he reported to the Reform Committee. It stopped because they couldn't imagine progressing differently. The evidence was in their own historical records. The Confederation had achieved incredible technological heights, but always along the same linear path. They had never considered that there might be alternate routes to the same destination. Humanity's gift to the galaxy wasn't new technology, it was new perspective. They showed that innovation didn't require breaking physical laws. It just required looking at those laws from different angles. Grand Arbiter Vex Thol, now serving in an advisory role to the Reform Committee, had perhaps undergone the most dramatic transformation. We thought we were teaching them, he admitted during a private session with Sarah. Instead, they taught us that there is always more to learn, always another way to approach a problem. The changes rippled through galactic society. Young species, once held back by rigid advancement protocols, were now encouraged to explore their own paths to development. The Confederation's vast knowledge was no longer a set of immutable laws, but a foundation for new discovery. There was an old Earth saying, Sarah told the committee during the final session of reform negotiations, standing on the shoulders of giants, we never dismissed the Confederation's achievements. We simply showed that those achievements could be a beginning rather than an end. The new Galactic Charter, ratified by both ancient and emerging species, embodied this philosophy. It maintained the safety protocols and regulatory frameworks that had kept the galaxy stable for millennia, but with a crucial difference. Now, these rules were guidelines to build upon, not restrictions to enforce. In the depths of space, where the first confrontation between humanity and the Confederation had occurred, Research Station Horizon continued its work, but now its laboratories housed scientists from across the galaxy, all working together to explore new possibilities. The quantum defense system that started all this, Dr. Chen explained to a group of visiting students from various species, it wasn't revolutionary because it was more advanced. It was revolutionary because it showed that even fundamental forces could be approached in new ways. The greatest victory wasn't that humanity had forced change upon the Confederation. It was that they had shown why change was necessary and desirable. The galaxy was entering a new age, one where wisdom came not from the accumulation of knowledge, but from the endless exploration of new possibilities. In the end, humanity's gift to the stars wasn't their technology. their tactics, or even their adaptability. It was the simple yet profound reminder that the universe is vast enough for many paths to progress, and that true advancement comes not from following in others' footsteps, but from finding your own way forward. The Confederation had trembled when humanity demonstrated their potential, but rather than breaking, it had transformed, becoming something greater than its founders had ever imagined. And in that transformation lay the greatest lesson of all. Sometimes the most powerful force in the universe isn't the ability to change others, but the wisdom to change yourself.